Cole.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to disagree with my good friend from New York. There's nothing disingenuous about the bill that we brought to the floor last week. And I want to disagree with my good friend from California. We haven't played politics with the issues. Matter of fact, I would suggest that people that are saying that things aren't being done that might otherwise be done might be the ones playing politics here. Let me walk through again the statements that the chairman made. $600 million has already been made available from excess funds that were to be spent years, not weeks, months, but years into the future. Last week, we doubled that, essentially, by moving legislation across the floor. Ms. Granger and I have already committed there will be literally hundreds of millions of dollars in the FY17 appropriation bills that will deal with these measures. So suggest things aren't being done and the money's not being made available, I think it's just, frankly, disingenuous, to borrow a phrase from my friend. The reality is it is being made available. It's just being paid for. That's simply the only difference. And for those of you that think shifting funds for future needs is unusual, I would just point out not too long ago, the President of the United States, as I recall, and I'll stand to be corrected, actually took $500 million out of the Infectious Disease Fund and moved it over to the Global Green Fund. And that was reprogramming. Now, that was money he didn't think he was going to need probably at the time for Zika, but it could have been made available for Zika. So we're doing the same sorts of things here. And eventually we will arrive at a point, now that the Senate's moved legislation, we've moved legislation, all the money that is necessary is being deployed, we'll get to some sort of compromise, I suspect, and we'll continue to move on. But our position is when you can pay for something, you actually ought to do it. And there's no need to add $1.9 billion to the debt of the United States when we have billions of dollars available. If we need to go back in future years and do more in these other areas, we'll do that. It's not as if we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, a new phrase that's popular around here. We're actually deploying the resources we have to meet the crisis that's in front of us with a commitment that if we need to do more later, we will. Only difference here is we're paying for it as we go. That's the prudent thing to do when you're running $500 billion deficits and we're already $19 billion in debt. So I commend the chairman for laying out a three-part strategy, for following it, for pushing us to respond early, to make resources available to the administration, and we'll continue to do that under his leadership. So we share our friends' concerns. But nothing has not been done, and nothing will not be done because of lack of money. We'll simply try to pay for it as we go along. Yield back.
Will the gentleman yield?
Certainly yield, the Chairman.
Briefly. With respect to the Center for Disease Control, that's been brought up here. In the reprogramming that the administration did, they put $300 million to the CDC. In our bill that we passed, we added another $120 million. All of that money is for 4.5 months. There's no human way they can spend that amount of money in 4.5 months. That's $420 million total for CDC for the next 4 months. It's impossible for that to be spent in that amount of time. So, point is, there's plenty of money available to fight this disease if the administration gets with it.
Well, and one additional point for my friends, and I know there's a genuine concern about this. Remember, there's also money in here to go past September 30th, frankly. The NIH money for the vaccine it cannot be spent in the amount of time we have. We've actually assured that flow for next year so we can continue to move. So, again, I understand the concern. I share the concern. I don't just understand the concern. I agree. But we'll continue to work on it. We'll get there. But we'll actually pay for it, or as much of it as we possibly can along the way. Yield back.